Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Taya and this is Taya's Turning Pages. Before we jump into today's video, I just wanted to say hey, especially to all of the new faces that have joined me here over on my channel. It really means a lot to me. You guys have no idea. I felt like I haven't sat down and actually filmed and uploaded a video to YouTube in so long, and that's because I haven't, to be honest. So this is kind of weird for me. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things because, as you guys know, I did just recently move and we're finally in this new apartment, thank goodness, but it took a lot to get here. It was very overwhelming, very chaotic. I totally underestimated and forgot how crazy and just exhausting moving and unpacking and packing can be. But like I said, we're finally in here now, so I'm really happy about that, and I can't wait to create more content for you guys and just to be able to like broaden my content horizons, you know, over the next coming months and in the future. So as you can see behind me, it is very blank and it is very white. I am still in the process of trying to unpack my books and figure out how I'm going to set up my bookshelves because our apartment is interestingly shaped, so trying to figure out where my bookcases are going to be, as well as like my little reading area and reading nook, it's been a challenge, but I'm hoping in the very near future I will have that under control and sorted out. But for now, you guys will see this plain background in the next coming videos, so I'm sorry about that. I know it's giving very much sterile, it's giving very much plain, but like it's what we got to work with for right now. So yeah, now moving on to the topic of today's video. As you can tell by the title, I am going to discuss my June TBR, and honestly guys, I have not been in the mood to read as many books as I usually do, and again, I'm associating that with the move. I have been reading here and there. I haven't completely, you know, fallen into a reading slump, but I definitely just haven't had the motivation to pick up as many books as I usually do. However, for this TBR, I have selected a few books, and I was trying to be strategic about it and really try to pick a book from, you know, most of the genres that I typically read from, or genres that I really want to read more from, that I've fallen off from, you know. So I do have a good selection here in my opinion, and it's not like super ambitious, but at the same time, with me still trying to unpack and just like sort through stuff, I don't know how realistic this is going to be. Just like my May TBR, I don't know how realistic it's going to be, but I really hope that I can get through it because I really want to read all of these books, and I just miss reading again. I miss being able to just read so many books that I love and enjoy and just give my thoughts and feedback, you know, on them to you guys through here, as well as Bookstagram and Storygraph. But with all of that out of the way, let's get started. So the first genre that I'm going to start off with is romance, and the first book that I have here, I'm actually already reading it right now, and I did talk about it in my May TBR video, and it is Jewel by Beverly Jenkins. So hopefully you guys can see this properly. I definitely showed this, like I said, in my May TBR video, so definitely make sure you check that out if you haven't already. I am at chapter 4 right now, and I am enjoying it so far, and I'm living for it because this is two of my favorite tropes, which are marriage of convenience and fake dating. So I'm just here for it all. So this story actually follows two characters, one named Eli and one named Jules. So starting with Eli, Eli is actually known as the town bachelor, but he is very kind and people really do respect and like Eli. And Eli used to actually operate and run the town's newspaper, but unfortunately because of lack of funding and things along those lines, the newspaper did end up going out of business. But Eli is really trying to get the newspaper started up again because again, the town really loved this newspaper. And so Eli actually does get a business proposition from this man, and the only way that this man will basically give Eli funding to start up his newspaper again is if Eli is a family man and he's married. And so Eli does go to Jewel and ask Jewel will she basically pretend to be his fake wife so that way he can seal the deal on this business proposition. Much to Jewel's dismay, she does decide to agree because her and Eli are actually really good friends, and while they're going through this fake dating charade, their plan does kind of get outed to the rest of the town, and so now they're pretty much backed into a corner, and they actually do have to get married in order to save Jewel's reputation, because back in this time period, a woman's reputation was everything, and if a woman was lying or not married or had a baby out of wedlock, she pretty much was looked at as not a good person. So because of all of that, Jewel and Eli do have to get married now, and you just follow them on this journey of actually growing to love one another while also dealing with the trials and tribulations that just come along with society during this time period. So that is pretty much the synopsis of the story, and like I said before, I'm living for it. Those are two of my favorite tropes, and you guys know how I feel about Beverly Jenkins as an author. This is auntie for real, okay? So I already know I'm gonna give this book 5 out of 5 stars. Like, I'm calling it now. Even though I'm still getting used to Jewel and Eli's characters, I can already tell that I'm really going to like them both individually and collectively. I'll definitely report back on my June wrap up and let you guys know how I truly feel about this book. And the second to last book that I have in this genre is The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. So I feel like I've talked about this book multiple times in my recent videos, so I'm not going to go into a full-blown synopsis for this book, but just in case you haven't watched those videos or you just don't know what this book is about, this actually follows a young woman named Solange who is assisting her cousin Lena, who is a wedding planner, for a wedding. And while Solange is prepping for this wedding and making sure that everything is going smoothly, she actually overhears the groom telling someone else that he is having cold feet and that he's not really sure if he wants to marry the bride anymore. And once Solange overhears this, she decides to take it upon herself to essentially crash the wedding and warn the bride. She goes to the bride and tells her what she overheard. The bride looks at this as a sign and decides to peace out and leaves the wedding. So now there is no bride to actually be wed. And once the groom finds this out, he starts to panic because his boss, who is actually in attendance, tells him in order for him to receive a promotion at work, he has to be a family man and he has to be married. So while the groom is panicking and trying to figure out his next move, he decides to ask Solange, can she pretend to be his fake wife, so that way his boss, you know, can see that he's a family man. Solange agrees and the story takes off from there. So it is a very silly standard rom-com and I'm here for that. I am going to be reading a few like sad books this month, so that's why I wanted to throw this one in here, because I just know that this is going to help me, you know, get back into a happy, healthy, you know, headspace, but also just give me those feel-good moments and those laughs that you usually get when you read a rom-com. So I'm really excited about this one. I've said this before, but I'm really happy that Mia Sosa is back on the scene, because The Worst Best Man is one of my favorite rom-coms of all time. So really happy that she's back and that she was able to give us this book. I've seen a lot of great reviews about it so far, so yes, really excited. And the last romance book that I have in this pile is Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola. So this is another book that I mentioned in my May TBR video, but this was actually in the hopefuls category and obviously I didn't get to it, so I am going to try to move this on to my actual like concrete TBR for the month. And this is a NetGalley read, so that's like one of the reasons why I'm trying to hurry up and read it, because I don't want it to expire and mess up my ratio. Like I mentioned, this is a NetGalley read, so that means that this is an arc and it doesn't come out until July 5th. So I am just going to read the synopsis here so I don't butcher anything, but right here it says, sweet like plantain, hot like pepper, they taste the best when together. Sharp-tongued and secretly soft-hearted, Kiki Banjo has just made a huge mistake. As an expert in relationship evasion and the host of the popular student radio show Brown Sugar, she's made it her mission to make sure the women of the African Caribbean Society at Whitewell University do not fall into the mess of situationships, players, and heartbreak. But when the Queen of Unbothered kisses Malachi Corday, the guy she just publicly denounced as the waste men of Whitewell, that's funny, in front of every black Wellian on campus, she finds her show on the brink. They soon embroiled in a fake relationship to try and salvage their reputations and save their futures. Kiki has never surrendered her heart before, and a player like Malachi won't be the one to change that, no matter how charming he is or how electric their connection feels. But surprisingly, entertaining study sessions and intimate late-night talks at old-fashioned diners force Kiki to look beyond her own presumptions. Is she ready to open herself up to something deeper? This sounds so cute. This is my first time actually reading the synopsis in full, and I'm here for it. When I saw this on NetGalley, I just requested it right away without even reading the synopsis, because I love Bolu Babalola. She's one of the funniest people that I follow on Twitter, and I just love her takes, especially her Love Island hot takes. Phenomenal. She's not doing it this year, which is really unfortunate, but I get it. But she's one of the funniest people, so I definitely recommend checking out her Twitter if you guys are interested. But she also has another book called Love and Color, and that was her debut novel, and I've heard that that got raving reviews like across the board. And I think that book is actually a collection of short stories that focus on African like mythology and like romance stories, so I definitely need to pick up that book at some point. But once I saw this, I just knew I had to get it because it was a classic rom-com, and this just sounds so cute. It's going to be really fresh, really unique, really just like sassy, and I love it. So I definitely can't wait to read this one, and I definitely will try to prioritize this in the month of June, since this comes out in July and I want to get my review out prior to pub date. So definitely make sure you follow me on Bookstagram, so that way you can be one of the first people to see my review on this book when I finish it. But yeah, okay, so now we're going to move on to classics as well as a nonfiction read. So I will start with the classic just to get that one out of the way, but this is another book that I talked about in my May TBR video. So many May leftovers, guys, it's not even funny, which I knew was going to happen. But the classic that I'm going to try to read this month is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. So guys, I finally have a physical copy of The Great Gatsby. It took me long enough, but I went to Target, saw that this was the last one, realized it was a sign, deadline, and so I picked it up and I'm really happy I have it now. I have mentioned in other videos that I don't really know the full synopsis of this book. The only things that I know is that this involves rich people, a lot of parties, and a lot of tragedy and despair at the end. That's all I know, and that is totally fine with me, but I can't wait to pick this one up. I'm really hoping that I can honestly read this weekend, because it is only about like 180 something pages, which is not bad at all. So I could really knock this out in one sitting, but I've just been kind of lazy. But I'm gonna really try to get to it this weekend, so that way I can just get it out of the way and finally say that I read The Great Gatsby, because it's kind of a crime that I have not read this book. Going through the American school system and not reading this book to me seems really bizarre, but we're about to do it now, so that's all that matters. The last book that I have in this category is a nonfiction read, like I mentioned, and it is A Stolen Life by J.C. Dugard. So this is a book that I mentioned in my 12 nonfiction books to read in 2022 video. I will leave that linked up above in the card somewhere, but I am finally getting around to it. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I have fallen off of the nonfiction train, which is really unfortunate. I've gotten back on the classics train, but now I've fallen off of the nonfiction train. So I'm trying to make my way back onto it, because I really do love nonfiction reads. Like, I really do, and it just pains me that I'm not reading them as much as I should, because for some reason romance has taken over my life yet again. Like I said, I'm trying to get back into it. This memoir is written by J.C. Dugard, and for those of you who do not know, J.C. Dugard was a child during the 90s, and she was unfortunately kidnapped, and I think she was held in captivity for about 18 years, and she went through some of the most horrific and traumatic things that you could possibly think of. And so this memoir is her just pretty much recounting what happened, as well as just what her thought process was during that time, and her just taking back the narrative as well as the autonomy that she did not have when she was held in captivity. So I'm really interested in reading this book and just learning more about the events that, you know, unfolded through JC's words, more so than a true crime documentary or a true crime YouTube video. I have looked into JC's case extensively, because I am one of those people that is interested in true crime, and JC's case was one of those cases that I was like constantly like, you know, looking into. And I'm really interested in reading it from her own standpoint and seeing, you know, how she is tackling the long-lasting trauma that she has been dealing with since this event took place. So yeah, I know that this is going to be very triggering and just very, very heavy and emotional. I've heard that this is a really great memoir, but I've heard that it's just really, really sad. I'll definitely report back in my June wrap up. So I feel like this is a common theme in some of my videos, is that I don't always have the physical copies of books, and then I forget to talk about them in my TBR videos, but I messed up. I also meant to say that I do plan on reading All Boys Are in Blue by George M. Johnson, actually called a memoir manifesto. I think this book is pretty much just like essays and notes by George himself, and he pretty much just talks about what his experiences have been growing up as a Black gay man. And I'm just really interested in reading this because, of course, Pride Month, but I have seen a lot of people talk about this book and again give it glowing reviews, and I think this is one of the books that is unfortunately being targeted by the people that like decide what books go on the ban list, which is really unfortunate and just really messed up when you think about it. I definitely want to support George M. Johnson and, you know, give him my coin, because come on now, like why are we banning books? Like, why are we doing that? It's just so unserious, especially with everything else going on in the world right now. Very unserious. I definitely want to support and just give this a read. So now moving on to the general fiction read that I have for the month, and it is a YA novel, and it is Hurricane Summer by Asha Bromfield. And I've talked about this book before, but can we just get into the cover? Like, look at that, absolutely stunning. I need to remove this Target sticker. I hate when they put these stickers on the front like that instead of putting them on the back. But yes, Hurricane Summer, Asha Bromfield. I actually bought this book last year, and this was one of the very first books that I ever bought to fill out my bookshelves, and I have not read it because I've been saving it to read for the summer, and we're finally here. So this book actually follows a teenage girl named Tilla, who is living in the United States, I'm pretty sure, with her mother, and it's always been Tilla and her mom. There's something that happens where Tilla's mom decides that Tilla should go live with her father in Jamaica for a few months just to get to know her father and to really try to form a relationship with him, because like I mentioned, it's always been Tilla and her mom. Her father was never really in her life, and so at first Tilla is really annoyed at the fact that she has to go to Jamaica and see her father. She does not want a relationship with him. She doesn't really want to bond with him or anything of the sort, because she's used to just, you know, it being her and her mom, and she's also really hurt that her dad never tried to reach out to her, you know, before this trip. Tilla does end up going. She has no choice, and so while she's in Jamaica, she's not really having the best time. But as time goes on, Tilla does start to, I think, you know, develop an actual like relationship with her father. In the midst of Tilla trying to reconcile with her father, a hurricane actually hits Jamaica, and now Tilla, her father, as well as the rest of her family and the rest of the town folk have to try to survive this hurricane, hence Hurricane Summer. So really interested in reading this one. This is another book that is going to be really, really sad. Every single person that I've seen read this book and review it on Bookstagram has said that it was so emotional, and it literally made them either cry or it definitely pulled at their heartstrings and made them tear up. And knowing me and knowing how sensitive and emotional I get, especially reading certain books, I just feel like this is going to be the one that is going to make me probably cry or shed a tear or two, especially because this book does touch on topics like Black girlhood and Black fatherhood, which are complicated, you know, dynamics within themselves. So I am really interested in reading this book for that alone and just seeing how Asha explores all of that. But I just know that this is going to be really, really sad, and I'm not really sure if I want to get into that headspace. But I really want to read this book and say that I read it because I have been intrigued by it ever since I saw the cover in Target that day and picked it up. So yeah, really excited, but just kind of scared. And the last book that I have on my physical TBR is a thriller, and it's the only thriller that I have for this month, which is kind of crazy because I was reading so many thrillers back in May, but you know, it's all about balance. But the last book that I have here is The Lake by Natasha Preston. So this story actually follows two teenage girls, one named Esme and one named Kayla. And Esme and Kayla actually used to go to the summer camp named Camp Pine Lake when they were children. During one summer at Camp Pine Lake, something bad really happened, and Kayla and Esme vowed to never speak about it again, and so they kept whatever happened during that summer between themselves. Fast forward years later, Kayla and Esme are now teenagers, and they decide to apply to be camp counselors at Camp Pine Lake. And so they decide to go back because they get the job, and they're really happy about it because, you know, they get some extra money in their pocket. But while they're there, Esme and Kayla start to notice weird things happening around the camp, and they begin to realize that someone knows what they did that one summer, and they're starting to dig up the past. And now Kayla and Esme have to figure out how they're going to stop this secret from getting out. And the story takes a sinister turn from there. So I'm really excited to read this one. I've heard a lot of mixed and polarizing things about Natasha Preston's books. She typically writes YA thriller books, and you guys know that a lot of people look down, I feel like, on YA books in general, but especially YA thrillers and horror books, which, like, whatever. I like them. I find them entertaining. I'm a sucker for a good, like, summer camp murder mystery story. I don't know what it is, but that setting and that trope gets me every time. So once I saw this on my bookshelf, I knew that I had to pick it up and I had to give it a read this summer because it's giving the vibe, giving what it's supposed to give already, I can tell. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this one, and I'm also interested to see if I'm going to be one of the people that really enjoys this book or if I'm going to be, you know, on the other side. I haven't seen too many people talk about this book. I feel like the main book that I see people talk about when it comes to Natasha Preston is The Twin, and I've seen a lot of people say that they didn't really like that book. So I don't know, I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna give this one a try. Right, y'all, and those are all of the books that I'm hoping to read in June. Now keep in mind that I am, like, interested in mood reading this month, so I'm hoping that I will get through most of these books or all of them, but at the same time, who knows? Like, I'm very unpredictable, I feel like, when it comes to my, like, monthly wrap-ups. You guys will see books that I never even talked about on my channel that just kind of fell into my lap and I decided to give them a read. So I'm sure that's going to happen here, but I'm glad that I at least do have a pile that I can choose from whenever I please and go from there. So yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me and my channel out. And lastly, please make sure you follow me on Bookstagram as well as Storygraph. I will leave all of that information linked down below, as well as at the end of the video, like I always do. I will see you guys in my next video.